Today, I've decided to draw a lily. I used a reference picture for inspiration, but mainly for the shape and structure of the flower. For this drawing, I was not trying to create a finished piece for sale or for polished showcase. This was more of practice session. A chance to test colors, explore different combinations, and see what works before using them in more serious piece. And I think there is something important to remember. Artists practice a lot. Before a final drawing, there are often color tests, small mistakes, experiments, and unfinished pieces that help us understand what we want to do better next time. So, as always, I started with the sketch. For me, the sketch is extremely important, even though a lot of the final shape, depth, and atmosphere will come later through color, shading, and highlights. The better the sketch is, the better the final result can be. A clean and well-planned sketch gives you a stronger foundation. It helps you understand the outlines, the direction of the petals, the proportions, and the overall flow of the flower. Sometimes when I sketch, I like to make more than one line. I draw softly, step back, look at the shape from little distance, and then choose the lines that feel the best. The ones I like, I keep. The ones I do not need, I erase. At the end of the day, it is only a soft pencil, and it's better to give yourself a few options before committing to the final outline. It is also important to think about perspective, because the lily is seen slightly from the side. The petals that are closer to the viewer should feel larger or longer, while the petals further away should appear shorter or partly hidden. Small things like this can make the drawing feel much more natural. Once I was happy with the sketch and the overall shape, I used an eraser to make the pencil lines much lighter, almost invisible. I do this so the pencil outline does not show too much through colored pencil layers at the end. Then I started coloring. As I said, this was mainly a color practice. I also used a simple office paper for this drawing, so blending was not as smooth as it would be on better paper. But again, that was perfectly fine because this was just a practice session. I usually like to begin with the lightest base color. For this lily, my first base color was light blue. With the first layer, I used very pressure. I only wanted to create a soft foundation of color, not cover the paper too heavily straight away. After that, I kept the light blue and added a second layer. This time I used a little more pressure, but I still left the highlights untouched. Keeping the highlights clean is very important because it helps the flower stay bright and gives the petals more shape. For the third step, I used a darker color to start building the shadows that completed the basic structure of the first petal. Then I'll continue getting more layers, trying different shades of blue and purple. I also added a soft black into the shadows, but honestly I did not like the result. The contrast became too strong and the petal started to look a little too harsh. So for the second petal, I changed my approach. This time I used two base colors, light blue and light purple. After a soft base layer, I added a slightly darker blue and slightly darker purple over most of the petal, while still leaving the highlights clean. Straight away I like this result more. The transition between the colors felt softer and the petal looked more natural. For the shadow layer I chose the darkest purple I had. This worked much better than the black. The petal had more depth, but it still stayed within the same color family, so the shadows did not feel too heavy. I still was not fully convinced, but I could already see the direction was better. For the next petal I started in similar way, but I made sure to include more purple from the beginning. That helped reduce the contrast between the blue and purple, and the colors started to blend together in softer way. That was the moment when I finally felt happy with the result. So I repeated the same process for the rest of the petals, starting with light base, slowly building up the color, keeping the highlights clean, and using darker purple for the shadows instead of black. For the last petal, I knew it needed to be a little more blue. It was more in front, and because the light source was coming from the front, it also needed to stay lighter than the others. But I was careful with the layering. I did not want the contrast to become too strong again, so I built the color slowly and tried to keep the transition softer. Lastly, I work on the stamens. For those, I wanted to use warmer colors but still keep them connected to purple tones of the flower, so I chose pink and red pink shades. Just like with the petals, I started with the lightest color first. Then I slowly worked my way towards the darker shades, adding more depth and definition step by step. And that was the main goal of this drawing. Not extreme realism and not perfect finished piece, but practicing color combination, testing layers and learning what works and what does not. Sometimes practice drawings are just as important as finished artwork. They help you make better decisions, understand your materials and improve your process. So, if you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, subscribe and let me know in comments what you would like me to draw next. Until next time, later.